Hello and welcome back to the Red Special Guitar Podcast with me, your host, John Underhill. If it's your first time here, then welcome. And if you've been here before, then nice to see you back. Thanks so much for coming, and I hope you enjoy this episode I have in store for you today. Today we're going to be catching up with a wonderful forum member by the name of Mr. Matt Netherwood, who's otherwise known as Yonderbosk, creator of things, and Matt makes loads of different things, and we talk about his story, and it's absolutely fantastic. Before we dive into that, I really wanted to take a moment just to talk a little bit about what's happened in the last year. And the reason for that is that today is the 2-year birthday of the Red Special Guitar Podcast. So hooray and happy birthday to the podcast. Well done you. You've done a great thing over the last 2 years. And you've enabled me as a vehicle to speak to lots of different people and to do lots of wonderful things. I think this year, obviously, highlights would be speaking to Brian May, obviously, goes without saying, and spending some time chatting to him. And some of the other bits and pieces that have happened off the back of that have been absolutely fantastic. And it's really difficult to convey how happy I am in words and emotions of being able to do that and what could potentially be lined up for the future. It's just fantastic. And I do have to pinch myself to remind myself that I did actually do what I never thought would happen, and that is spend an hour and a half chatting to my hero, which is one of those things that's gonna, you all know what I mean, but I just can't put it into words, and I probably don't shout about it enough and talk about what I've done. But yeah, it was a good moment, and it was good times. I'm going to release a little video at some point about the story of how that all came to be, and the moments before going live and whatnot. So have a look out for that. And if that sounds like something you'd be interested in watching, or any of the other content that I've got on YouTube or on podcast sites, then please make sure that you have a think about subscribing and liking and leaving comments, because those things are fantastic, and it helps the channel get found, helps the channel grow, and it also lets me know what you think of things, which is absolutely fantastic. We've also, last video we did was a rig rundown with Luke Timmins. It seems to have gone down really well. Thanks again, Luke, for letting us do that. It was a great gig, and it's highly worth watching if you haven't seen it yet. Something else that we'd like to do a little bit more of in 2023, not just with Luke Timmins, but with some of the other Queen tribute acts, and let's see where that leads us to as well. And yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention that's happened since the last episode was that the article that Brian asked me to write for the Queen Fan Club magazine has been published and is out there for all to see who get the Queen Fan Club magazine. And I wouldn't say I forgot I'd written it, but with all the things that had gone on, I had written it, edited it, put it together and sent it off. And I had forgotten that it was coming out this side of Christmas. It was a lovely surprise when a couple of you sent me some photos from the magazine of the article. I'll put those on the screen somewhere so you can have a look. But yeah, it was a wonderful thing to have been able to do, and it's fantastic that not only the Brian May fans of the world will understand the podcast and the meetups, but some other general Queen fans will too. So that's been great. But without further ado, and it's time to get over to today's episode. And today, I've already said, is with Mr. Matt Netherwood. I would say that we recorded this about 6 months ago, so some of the things Matt's got up to that we're trying to allude to but don't necessarily say in the episode have happened. But we'll pick those up after the episode. And here's Matt Netherwood. Ladies and gentlemen of the Red Special Guitar Podcast, I am with a very good friend of mine who has helped me on many, many things, and who contacts me and I contact very frequently to discuss the minutiae of Red Special's guitars. He has been around the forum for some time, and we're going to learn all about that today, but he has helped a lot of people out with his pickups. Some people know him as Mr. Yonderbosk, but I like to call him Mr. Over There Tree, which we'll come on to later on. Welcome, Matt Netherwood, to the Red Special Guitar Podcast. How are you, Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Deacy.
Excellent. Yes, very good. Very good.
Yeah, not so bad. Thank you. Coping just about.
And how have you been over? Obviously, we saw you last year at the Red Special Meetup in October, so it hasn't been quite so long as it has been with some of the guests on the podcast. But how have you been through COVID, Matt? How's that been affecting you?
Not too bad. I mean, my day job is a job that I'm doing from home. Literally, I haven't been in the office since the first lockdown. I've probably been 3 or 4 times since then. But yeah, thankfully, it's a type of job that's easily done at home. So it's no commute. Which, well,
No.
20 steps from the bedroom to the office, which is where I am, but you can't see because of all this behind me, because it's a bit of a mess at the moment. But yeah, no, it's not been too bad, and I think it as well, not having that couple of hours at the end and the beginning of the day has let me concentrate a little bit on doing all the bits that we're no doubt going to be discussing.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, there's quite a few things to go through. I was going to ask you, because I don't know the answer to this story, but I don't think I would ever ask you. But Matt, what was it? Where can you remember back to your first memory of Queen? Where were you? How old were you? What were you doing?
It's really the whole Queen fan thing for me is down to one guy. It goes by the name of John Wynne. Probably won't be listening to this, but it was one of those things that was just a bit strange the way it happened. We always had family holidays, me, my mum, dad, and my brother in Scarborough. We always stopped at the same place every year. And one particular year, there was another two families that stopped at the same time with sons and daughters basically at the same ages as me and my brother. So we all just hit it off. And then from that year, we all started going to regs the same week every year just to be touched. And the aforementioned John, yeah, he was an ultimate Queen fan at the time. This would have been probably 84, 85, something like that. Yes, I was only 2 at the time. But it's all down to him. He got my brother into Queen, and by osmosis, sort of got me into Queen a bit as well. And then it just snowballed from there. It was through my teenage years. It was one of the soundtracks to my life, really.
Well, that's really interesting. Because in my head, you'd popped up on the forum. So I'll say relatively recently, probably not recently in terms of actual timing, but in terms of forum time. It's just how I
17, 18, I think, somewhere around that sort of time.
Yeah. So I always go on when I say recently in my head, it's the forum, the length of the forum existing, which is about what, 6 years now, 5, 6 years,
something like that. When I'm sat here thinking that the 1980s were only 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's just a few longer than that now. So,
that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. So was there a specific standout song for you that really got you hooked, or was it just the whole out of an album, or was it something John Wing used to play you? Or
I think it was Greatest Hits would be probably the one that got me into music by Queen itself. The first record I bought was the single of One Vision.
Yeah.
When 7-inch vinyl singles were all the rage. And then Greatest Hits on cassette.
Yeah.
What do you remember those?
The little cream coloured cassette.
Yes. So that was my first foray. And then again, showing my age here, around about that time, I bought myself, saved up and bought myself a hi-fi system with a CD player, which was a brand new fangled thing at the time. And the first CD was The Works.
Yeah.
And a number of firsts for the Queen.
Yeah, definitely. I remember they were quite forward thinking. I remember being able to buy a Queen mini disc when mini discs came out as well. Whether that was a decision by Queen or by the record company, but they were certainly seemed to push the format, whatever format was hip at the time they tried to push. So going back then to then, were you did you pick guitar up to play at that point, or were you a later guitar player? Or
that would have been a little bit later. I think I was at sixth form college, so 17, 18 at the time. And there was me and a few friends at college. We were all into rock and heavy metal and wearing leather jackets and all that sort of stuff. And it was one of the usual things. A Sunday afternoon, we'd all go around to one guy's house and just literally make noise.
Nice.
My first ever guitar was a Hohner Rockwood, sort of a Strat type copy.
Yeah.
With 2 single coils and then 2 together as a humbucker with a little switch, so you could switch the humbucker on and off. But yeah, that was my first foray into trying to play guitar.
Did you attempt any Queen songs back then, or was it solely?
You know what I'm going to say now, don't you?
Yeah, probably.
Band.
Yeah.
It was "Tie Your Mother Down" was, I think, everybody's first attempt at a Queen song.
Yeah. Well, it's jokingly banned. I think it's actually a pretty good one when we actually do play it.
It is.
Pretty good fun, and yeah. No, well, and how did that go down at that point? Was that was it easy to learn for you, or did you?
We did a few. It was all there was Guitar Techniques magazine, I think, at the time. You used to buy the magazine and had the CDs stuck on the front of it, and it gave you all the tab and lessons on how to play. And I remember, probably still got it somewhere. I remember playing the one that had Brian May on it. And so there was, of course, Tie Your Mother Down, Hammer to Fall, all the standards that were on there, and teaching how to play. So yes, upstairs in the bedroom, making noise.
And playing guitar.
And playing guitar.
So it's obviously, 6th form, 17-year-old. It's a similar sort of story to quite a few of the people that we've had on the podcast, and that we all sort of found it and then decided that time to pick up guitar. Was it directly because of Brian at that point that you picked up guitar, or was it some other influence as well? Or
I think it was, in a way, peer pressure, because we obviously had the group of friends, and everybody seemed to be gravitating towards the guitar. Nobody wanted to sing, nobody wanted to play bass, nobody had any drums, so everybody just turns up with the guitar.
It sounds like the Meetup, the first few. Yeah, I guess. Well, so did you draw straws and it was hard to play guitar then?
No, we all just turned up and played. Sort of bouncing off each other, and one of us would go away one week and learn something, and then come back the next week and then teach it to us. And so we just sort of mess around and share knowledge around that time. And
so you obviously, from listening to you, you're playing guitar at that point, 17. How much research had you done into Brian May and Queen at that point? Was it a big influence on you at that point as it is now, or is it growing?
Yeah, I mean, the overwhelming memory that I have is going into, I think it was Spectre Sound in Huddersfield, and they were an authorized guild dealer. And I remember me and my mate Brett going in there on a Saturday afternoon, and there, on the wall was a guild, Brian May. We did get to play it. We did have a few minutes on it, and yeah, at that point it sort of struck me that how different the guitar was to any other guitar out there. You'd heard the stories about it being homemade from bits of bicycles and things like that, and fireplaces, but until you actually got something like the guild in your hand and started, what do these switches do and things like that, that it suddenly dawns on you just how different it was.
Yeah, no, it's a special moment when you start to realise. So obviously, I'm guessing you didn't save up and buy that guild, because I haven't seen it at the Meetup.
No, student days, no money. They weren't. I think they were £1,000 or something like that.
Yeah, they weren't cheap when they came up.
My Hohner Rockwood cost me £80.
Wow.
So yeah,
no,
be a lot of Saturday jobs to be able to afford one of those at the time.
Yeah, no, it's similar times now, I guess, but it feels different because the only place you could buy these things was in a shop, and there was none. Yeah, you were lucky if you had a shop that sold guilds and then had one, and you could go and have a look at it. But it's definitely changed now with the internet, where things are still relatively, a guitar is still expensive, but you can order it online and it's here tomorrow.
Yes. None of this as it used to be again back then. You send something out, and every single advert for every single thing you bought says please allow 28 days for delivery.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Absolutely funny. It's crazy. It is. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that reminds me of how life used to be, talking to everyone, because you do forget how accessible everything is now. And back then it was a proper, like, well, mum and dad don't want to send a check in the post, so you don't have to figure out some way of paying them and then do this, that, and the other. And no, cool.
The days of not having a checkbook and having to go in and getting a banker's draft over the counter and sending that off.
Yeah, and then proof. Yeah, no, it's definitely different. So you obviously, you didn't buy that guild. You carried on playing guitar throughout the years, and then a period of time passes. And what are you up to in that time? Because are you learning about the Red Special then, or is it something that you put down because life gets in the way and then you find again later?
It's a little bit of both, really. I mean, I always saw what Queen was doing. There was a very friendly local record shop that let me have a couple of the promotional packs and things that they send out to the retailers. So promotional pack for I Want It All. Somewhere, I think probably still at my mum's house, is the massive advertising board for the Miracle, and we're talking, I think it's about 4 foot square picture of Miracle album cover. So I think that's at my mum's still somewhere. So there was collections of that, window stickers, that sort of period as well. I was still a member of the Queen fan club. When I used to get the quarterly, I think it was, magazines, little booklet magazines that you got from with pen pal sections at the back. So met a few people that way, and then met up with them when we were going to places like Pontins at Southport for the meetups, as they were then, the conventions, as they called them.
The old Queen conventions.
Yes. Those were the days when, very, very drunk evenings.
So that must have been, because there's a bit of time missing in your story. Not missing, it's not like you can't remember it.
I probably can't.
But in terms of from your youth to picking up guitar to all these albums coming out, and then actually finding a forum online, because you actually
I think a lot of it was, again, back in the early days of the internet, 56k screeching dial-up and things like that. There was little snippets of information that were out there. I think as people tried to find out more, there was a bit more information. I think, as some of the other guys would say, the only real good photographs that you could get of the Red Special at the time were in things like the inside photo from the Starfleet Project album. I think that's probably the clearest, although obviously black and white, photo that anybody really had ever seen of it till that point. And I know some of the guys that are in the community is that's what they used as their base to then make their specials from.
It did, definitely. There's a lot of people blew that photo up, or like by hand, and then got it scaled and created and generated to create the outline, and tried to adjust for the photographic parallax or the lens parallax, and built copies. So it's because the forum's been around, from my recollection, for like the early, as we learned speaking to Gonzalo back in Phoenix around the early 2000s. There's 17 years there, Matt, where you weren't with us. So what happened? Why did you start looking? Or was it, did you find the web forum first, or the Facebook forum?
Yeah, I think there was, when I started looking, I came across about 2 or 3 different forums and websites. Brian May World being one, I think, probably one of the first ones that I found. And that's where I started getting some of the more detailed information about what the guitar is, and some of the myths put to bed, some of them confirmed, obviously things like the tremolo arm from the saddlebag of the bike, and all that sort of thing. So I think it would have been early 2000s when I got my Burns
Yep.
BMG.
When they first came out. Yep.
Yeah, it was the one I got was towards the end of the proper Burns run. It was its serial number, I think 4497. And I think it was from 4,500 and something onwards that became the transition models before they moved on to the full BMG one. So it's one of the later ones I've got. And then it's sort of at that point that I started thinking, yes, it's a nice guitar. Yes, it looks like Brian May's guitar, but it's not really exactly there. And I think that is when Pandora's box gets opened and you start looking and researching and just disappearing down that rabbit hole. And I think the forums that I've been on, that's where a lot of the information has come from initially.
Yeah. So did you gravitate towards a specific one? Was it the Brian May World Forum originally, and then?
Yeah, it was the Brian May World one initially, and I think there was part of that because there was a register of Burns owners, I think, on the page, and I think if you go back on the Wayback Machine or something like that, you'll still find the page, and my name is on there against my particular serial number.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got a little bit of discussions around that, but then it was just something in my head that I thought, he made one himself with his father. It can't be that difficult, sure. That's when you start looking at trying to do it yourself.
Yeah, famous last words.
Yeah.
So you obviously, you just said you decided that you want to make one. When was that? Was that in the mid 2000s, or was that?
It's something that I've always sort of had in the back of my head that I would like to do that. Finding the time, and I think a lot of it, plucking up the courage to actually make the start on it. Sitting there with a big rectangular chunk of mahogany and thinking, I've got to turn this into a neck somehow. And actually starting to get some brass files and jigsaws and things like that, and actually start cutting into pieces of wood. That's the obstacle that you need to get over to actually get on with it. Otherwise, you'll just sit there and look at the piece of wood, and then nothing will ever happen.
It's quite daunting as well, because it's a big old chunk of mahogany you start with for the neck, and where do you start? What do you do? And if you haven't had any woodworking experience, which some of us haven't, and it's not necessarily what we would do, it's a bit of it's daunting to think, one false move and that's that. I wouldn't like to say how much a piece of mahogany costs that's accurate, but that's that piece ruined, and it can be quite a difficult thing to get one's head round.
Yeah, because the last time I'd done any real woodwork would have been in high school.
Yeah.
So CDT, as it was called when I was at Craft Design and Technology.
It used to be called that. Yeah, funny that. It brings back memories. Yeah, I absolutely hated that at school.
It wasn't too bad. I mean, it was something that, again, in sort of like earlier teens, I've done a lot of airfix type model making, things like that. So I knew I could do things and build things. So I wasn't a total klutz when it came to trying to make anything. So it's that, with all the fiddly stuff that you'd have in models, it was probably as good a start as any of fiddly stuff for building specials. No,
definitely. Well, it's a fiddly guitar to build, and there's lots of different methods used in other guitars, and it's amazing how many different cuts and drill holes and elements there are to it when you start looking at the detail of it as well. It's not as straightforward as it looks.
When you're explaining to people that you're building a red special, and they look at you in disbelief and saying, your first guitar build, red special.
I definitely, I think that goes with the territory of being part of the forum, though, doesn't it? Oh, you mad? Yes, that's fun in the forum, but
Yeah.
So you from memory, you popped up on the forum, and I remember I'm trying to remember back. You probably asked some questions, and my biggest memory is that you were starting to build one by hand, and you were trying to make that was on the Red Special forum. I think I first came across your work, and then it started to mirror on the Facebook forum as well. And you were starting to build what was going to be your relic, I think was your first one.
Yes. Deliberately chosen as a relic first, because I think this is the first thing I'm making. There will be mistakes. I will trunks out when there shouldn't be trunks missing and things like that. So I thought, well, if I make it deliberately as a relic, and then when I show it people, nope, it's supposed to look like that, it's one. But yeah, that was all hand to, well, say hand tools. Obviously, there's things like jigsaws and things like that. But yeah, the outline of the neck was cut with a jigsaw, but the rest of it was done with rasp files, chisels, and sandpaper and things like that. So yeah, as much hand tooling as you could probably get away with, really.
Yeah, well, I remember watching the progress of it and seeing you doing what I thought for the first guitar build. It was a pretty good job, to be fair. And you'd gone to the trouble of trying to replicate lots of dents and dings and bits of wear and mistakes and
yes, some of it is to hide mistakes that I made. But yeah, some of it from and again, so by this time we're talking more 2018 or something like that. There was a lot of information out there. Just didn't exist before. There was a lot more photos and in higher resolution, so it was more simple to be able to replicate some of the finer details. And I think as well, from sort of watching TV programs, watching Mythbusters with Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman. Adam Savage, for those who don't know, he used to work at Industrial Light and Magic in the model making shop. And made a number of things for Star Wars, and so I started watching videos of his on YouTube, and he's going through things on how to add weathering to items and make it look used and look old, and that's where I started sort of thinking, I could probably use some of these tips for making the guitar look worn.
Yeah, definitely. He's such a clever chap, isn't he? And it's one of my subscribed channels on YouTube because he's so engaging too, and he's got great stories, and what he turfs out is far beyond what I could do. And it just looks like he goes, oh, and you just get this and do, and it looks like this.
Exactly.
Yes, just like that.
But yeah, I did actually get one question answered by him on one of his live streams one time.
Cool.
Talking about weathering and things like that. So obviously he uses acrylic paints and oil paints. I was asking the question of, when would you think of using an oil paint? When would you think of using an acrylic paint? What's the pros and cons of each for weathering? So that was quite nice to get sort of not direct but indirect interaction with him.
Ideal. No, it's good. And he's and your relic came out pretty well, I think, for a first guitar. I know there's some things that if we were to have it with us at the moment, I'm sure it's near you somewhere in the house, but there's probably things that you would say that you could do better now.
There on the wall. Which but for if you want.
It's up to you. It's got a big neck and it's heavy. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, which is weird as well. That I think it's actually slightly heavier than the original. Probably partly due to the neck itself. Probably also partly due to the amount of wood filler that is in it. Because the block board that I used was your commercial 18mm block board with about a 0.6mm ply on the top, which is taking it up to somewhere near a 19mm. But unfortunately, the quality of the Far Eastern block board leaves a lot to be desired, and there's lots of voids and lots of knots. So when you were cutting out for the all the cavities and things like that. You get there and there'd be massive holes, and you get the wood filler, fill that back in.
Well,
Yeah, there's as much wood filler as there is wood in that thing, I think, at the moment.
Oh well, yeah. It's just twigged my memory actually, because from memory that you wanted to get that one finished for the first meetup I arranged.
Yes, 2018. Yeah, I started it in probably around March, April 2018.
Yeah.
And I almost had it finished.
You were there on the day, weren't you, soldering the switches up, trying to get it come to life.
Everything was done except the wiring. Basically, everything was in place. It was just wiring the switches to the pickups to the polarity post and get it working. So yes, there's probably photos of me from that meetup hunched over a soldering iron, trying to get the thing going together. Unfortunately, it didn't actually come to life on that. I got to the point where I thought, no, I just need to walk away from this. Just let people look at it. Play it acoustically if they want, but unfortunately, it's not getting plugged in.
No, I remember it well. It's just you hunched over it, trying to get the scratch plate off, I think, to begin with, because I think you'd forgotten the Allen key for
the tiny little Allen key for taking the knobs off. So yes, trying to find an alternative to try and get the grub screws out of the volume and turn knobs to get them off and the pick guard off.
Well, it's interesting then, Matt, because it was for me, that was the first meetup I'd arranged, and I think it's the first one that had been around for a few years. And I was amazed anyone turned up to begin with, and I'd seen your work on the forum, and there you were trying to wire it up on the day. I felt sorry for you.
Yeah, no, it was a good day. I think probably punctuated by the fact that, as you know, female and drone came for the day, for the afternoon. And yeah, he made a point of going around everybody in the room and speaking to them and seeing what they were up to. And yeah, I was still hunched over soldering iron at the time. But he came over and said, "Oh, what's going on over here?" So I said, "Well, late, I'm trying to get the wiring and everything like that." So I sort of loosely put it all back together, not screwing thing on. So, you mind if I have a look? So he puts it up and have a look. Puts his hand round the neck. That's even more baseball batty than the original. So yes, I think I needed to shave a little bit off. I think what it was, I'd got some plans and I thought, it's supposed to be a really thick neck, but this looks a bit thinner than perhaps I was expecting, so I left a bit more wood on. So perhaps I shouldn't really have done that. I should have actually taken it off as per the plans.
Wow, you live and learn, don't you?
Exactly. But yeah, one thing sort of beats Spartan shot on. He liked the look of it. He said, "Oh, yeah, that's very close." That neck's rather like. Never mind. You can always build another one.
Another one, yeah.
And here I am building.
And here you are. Yeah. Well, you've built a few more since then as well, haven't you?
Yes.
The following meetup, you had a couple of others that you'd built, and I think you changed your methods slightly.
I had, and it's all with grateful thanks to Mr. Doug Short on that one. He was obviously doing his own Red Special, which again was one of the meetups as well, looking rather superb on it. And he very kindly let me use his 3D CAD work to get to 2 body arms and a neck done. So found a place down in Sheffield, I think it was. I'd gone round about half a dozen places locally and not so locally, sort of saying, just with 3D renderings, just pictures, sort of saying, "Can you do this?" A lot of them didn't answer. A couple of them had a look at it and thought, "Oh, we can give it a go, but we don't know what the results are." And then this place, Cutting Edge Woodwork, I think it was in Sheffield, looked at it and went, "Yeah, we can do that." So yeah, I went with them originally. It was originally I took 3 pieces of mahogany down for necks, as he use one of those as a test if you want, but I only need 2. So if it comes out all right, just do 2, and then 2 versions of the body. What they actually did was there was a big chunk of oak lying around the workshop, and they used that for the test neck, which came out perfect, to be honest. So when I went down to look at it, and I went, yep, that's brilliant, you can do all the rest now. What's happening to that neck? Well, it's just a piece of old oak, we just throw it in the skip. Well, can I take it off your hands? Just, yeah, hands it over. And then that sort of bore the idea of, well, I wonder what a red special with an oak neck rather than a mahogany would be like. And hence was born the oak special, which is oak neck, unpainted oak fingerboard, but standard block board and an oak body with an oak veneer on it. And it doesn't sound too bad, really.
No. Again, it's a nice looking guitar. It's nice to. I mean, the red special is iconic, and I don't want to be burned as a heretic at the meetup for saying this, but sometimes it's nice to see other takes on the red special.
It is.
Just to see what people come up with, really, and it's always lovely to think people have taken Brian's original idea or Brian Harold's original idea and tried to make it their own, or to see how they can alter it slightly to their own tastes, or just to see what's possible.
Yes. Yeah, and then again, the art of the possible is something that sort of lurks in the back of my brain a lot of the time. I'm sat there thinking, I wonder if you can actually do X, Y, Z.
Yeah,
I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And that then really was born the purple one, the big purple one, or Purple Rain, REIG, as it sometimes gets known.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was again mahogany neck. This time I went for an ebony fingerboard rather than an oak one, and the curly maple veneer on it, because trying to purplize mahogany. As people might have seen on my page recently, if you try and bleach mahogany to get it lighter, it was no, don't bother. So yeah, starting with the curly maple and using that, and the basis behind that was to have it purple with gold. So Ron Smith very kindly provided me with an all brass hardware kit, and a brass tremolo arm. The only thing that he found with the brass tremolo arms is that the grade of brass that was used at the time was quite bendy, so if you got a lot of resistance on the springs on the trem, you can actually just be bending or flexing the arm, and the actual tremolo is not going anywhere. So he worked it out, and he got a different grade of brass and sent me a replacement one with the better grade of brass, and it works just as well as a steel one, really. But the big thing with that was, what did I want to do for the binding? I was thinking originally sort of like a gold sparkle like they have on snare drums. The actual, the outer of the snare drums have got that sort of gold sparkle. I thought, nice, but if you slice it, it's sort of still white on the edge, although the face of it is gold sparkle, so you still see white in the front. I thought the only really way to do it is to use brass, and I set myself up for that, didn't I? So trying to find some brass in about the right size, and although with the normal white binding, you can heat it up with a hairdryer and bend it roughly to shape, and eventually it'll sit there. With brass being slightly springy, you had to bend it more than the bend you were going for it to spring back a little bit, and then try and stick it on. So if anybody's ever thinking of doing another guitar with brass binding, think again. It worked ultimately, but it is extremely difficult.
It's a nice looking guitar though, and it is a lovely moment at the meetup last year to see Merlin absolutely ripping away on it.
It was
in front of everyone. It's
I think that's the thing with me, that although I play a bit of guitar, I'm very much a home player, using like a box MV50, something like that, and keeping the volume down.
Yeah.
But to hear it being played by Merlin, i.e. somebody who actually knows what they're doing with it, or on a full Brian May style rig, there's a case of, sorry, not that bad really, is it?
It's pretty good, Matt. It sounded pretty good. So I mean, that's you're up to, that would have been the second meetup with the purple guitar and the oak special, I think, the 2018,
19, I think.
2019, yeah, 28. I can't remember when I did it.
18 was the relic, and then 19 was those two.
And then amongst all that, again, I don't know, I can't remember the exact timeline. I'm sure you'll know. You also were making pedals and trying your hand with electronics, and you've been putting together some treble boosters, and you've been doing some other bits and pieces.
Yes, and again, trying to sit there thinking the art of the possible, that I've got, and I know some people on the forum recently have done it, got circuit boards from Fuzzdog to build their own. And it's a good circuit board to go from if you know the schematics or the values for the treble booster you're building. You can build pretty much any treble booster you want, as long as it's not a germanium one, because obviously PNP versus NPN.
Yep.
For the transistors, and of course as well the BC182L, which for some reason has the legs in a completely different order than any other normal transistor, so you've got to work around that one as well. But yeah, they do work as treble boosters. So yeah, I did a clone of a deluxe and things like that, with the stomp switches on them. And then I happened to be again doing bits of research and came across Greg Fryer's website and his blog, and one of the things that he had on there was something called the Grand Kubar, which literally was 3 treble boosters and a switch, a rotary switch to switch between the 3 treble boosters. I did actually message him about it and saying, how does it work? Does it actually work okay? And I think he said at the time that he designed it and he'd done the diagram for it, but he'd never actually built one. So I thought, aha. But can I take it and do the Brian May and Queen thing? And if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So I ended up building what is now known as the Hex box, which is 6 treble boosters on a switch in one box.
Yeah.
Again, just to say the art of the possible. I think the transistors in a couple of those need swapping out. I think they're a bit low. When we've tried it, they don't really seem to boost very much.
No, but some of them were absolutely fine as treble boosters. And I remember we demoed it one year, didn't we? And we were clicking it around, and there's definitely a few that maybe need the slightly higher gain or higher. I forget what's the HF value on the
HFE values for the
on the resistors. I can't even speak today, Matt. I don't even know what I'm just rambling rubbish to try and confuse the people of the Red Special Guitar Forum. The HFE values on the transistors. But yeah, no, it sounded great. Some of the settings, I forget which one sounded great, but there was at least one on there that was.
Yes, I think it was the deluxes. The deluxe touring were okay. I think the Range Master was, I think it's too low again in that one, because I actually used I think an AC127 in that, because that is the right PNP or NPN for that type of board. Roughly the AC128 is the other style. So yeah, I used an AC127 in that, but I think is probably a bit too low gain for what it's needed for. But I mean, it was good in the way you say that sometimes when doing demos at the meetups and you say, here's a treble booster, and you play it, and then it takes you a couple of minutes to swap over to the next treble booster, and you go, and here's the next treble booster, and you think, It sounds exactly the same as the last one. It's that much of a gap between the
Yeah.
two sounds that you really can't do it. So I
No.
think the joy with that one is you could literally have your guitar plugged in and say, this is a deluxe, chugga, 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 chugga. This is a touring, chugga, 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 chugga. And you can hear it straight after
Yeah.
each other. And you start then to pick out the little nuances between the different boosters.
Yeah, definitely. I also think the treble booster A/B testing is always slightly flawed because we always do it. We always do some element of something where we're doing it, but I think after a couple of minutes of listening to an 80/30 flat out, everything starts to sound the same. And it,
See also Luke Timmins in the kitchen.
yeah. There's a great demo
How many
though.
guitars did he have in the end for that?
I think it's like 18. It was, but that just proved a really valid point, didn't it? And there's, you know, a lot of it I think comes down to how you yourself interacting with the guitar and the amplifier rather than how it necessarily sounds out front to everyone else. But no, and that's the beauty of the meetup really, and we get to build things and take things along and try them out.
Yes.
And so you were building pedals at that point as well as building your guitars, and you're learning more about electronics. And was it through those pedals that you've learned about electronics, or did you have an electronics background before?
Not really very much of one. Again, it's things, researching things on the internet to find out how things work. I've always been that sort of person that that's very nice and it works, but how does it work?
Yeah.
Even as a kid, sort of taking things apart to see how things are wired up, and then having the usual few bits left over at the end when you put it all back together again.
Very similar.
It's always been a thing of mine, you know, is seeing beyond the outer of what it's doing and into how is it doing it.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's been interesting watching you since over the years, because I mean, from the first meetup, I think we've stayed in pretty regular contact over the last 6 or 7 years.
Something like that, yeah.
Blimey, that's a long time.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, we've been in pretty regular contact, and you know what's going on, what you're working on, and what I'm working on, and whatnot, which is always good fun to share. But it's been interesting watching your journey from that first meetup with the Relic guitar, and then a few boosters, and then the Hex box, and I think you've made some other electronics as well, and then you ended up making some bits and pieces for other people too.
Yeah.
Over time, was that the 3D printing that started that off, or was it?
Yeah, there's been little bits of 3D printing. I had Nelly Mars to start off with. That a few years now. It's one of the sort of first real consumer generation of resin 3D printers rather than your filament 3D printers. And yeah, people have asked me to just print a few things. Could you do? I did some for Ben Belden where I actually printed off resin plastic versions of the tremolo kit, so knobs and the tremolo block and things like that. Just again, it's something that before you get the actual parts, it's something that you can fit in and make sure that if you're designing something, it's the right size. You're making the holes the right size for the bits that's ultimately going to go into it and things like that. Yeah, because the pickups in the Relic originally were a set of Burns Trisonic, which came from AliExpress. And still get them on there. You can get them as blank covers or with the Burns logos on them. I'm still not sure whether they are actually falling out of the back door of the Boohoo and Korea BHK that make the Burns ones, or whether they are actual completely different factory that's making them. But it started off with a set of those in there with the base plate, the neck unceremoniously ripped off and filled with barrel dives. That sort of did for the first part, but then I thought, no, I want them to be closer if I can, and then got in contact with Julian Hemingway. who has been making trisonic coils for a number of years.
Yep.
And he very kindly made me a set of sort of prime May spec coils. So I use the same cases, I use the same magnets even in there, put them together, and they sound superb, to be honest.
Yeah.
Although it is a different type of magnet, I think they're more Alnico magnets that are in the Chinese copies, rather than obviously the ceramics that's in the original. But with Julian's coils in there, they sound pretty damn good.
Yeah. And you, I mean, that starts off another story, I guess, of the creation of your business over their tree, or Yonderbosk, as everyone else knows it. But yeah, of Yonderbosk Creations coming to life, and you starting to manufacture pickups. And how did that all start, Matt? Because you know, we've had Adrian Turner on the podcast, and it's really interesting. You know, he was at a position completely different to yourself, and he was there with the guys from Burns who were, you know, he found the machines that they were originally using and stock of all the parts. So he had a different insight into it. I'm guessing. Well, I've already spoken to Julian, so I know that Julian sent you some information on how he was doing it, and then
he did, yeah. I mean, he was very good. You know, we're very happy to share some information on that. Obviously the coils themselves, rather than on a normal bobbin wind, you have your bobbin, you wind your copper wire around it, stick the case together, yeah, presto, done. Also with the trisonics, it's an air coil, so you actually have a bobbin that is collapsible. So there's got to be a way of building this thing, wrapping the copper wire around it for 7,000 turns or whatever you do it for, and then getting that coil off in one piece to then start wrapping the cotton binding around it. So yeah, Julian was very, very gracious in sort of giving me details of things like the dimensions of his bobbin and things like that. So from that, again, using 3D printing and sort of CAD design software, I started designing my own version of a bobbin carrier to those dimensions, and then winding them and seeing if that meant they actually got anywhere near close to where they needed to be. There was some little jiggery pokery, a little bit of filing off here and there to actually get it so the number of turns to get your resistance give you the right amount of inductance that you wanted. Because it's okay saying that, as an example, you have a coil of a given resistance, which is brilliant, until you put it in your hand and it warms up, and then the resistance starts going up dramatically. And then similarly, if you got the resistance right, you've then got the inductance. So if your coil is still on the former in a sort of a long and narrow, it's going to be one inductance. As soon as you wrapped it all up and it sort of relaxes into a more oval shape, then your inductance changes. So the key thing is to get the resistance right and the right number of turns on the right sized coil to get the inductance correct. So when you actually put it with a magnet into a steel base and squish down just right, that the inductance is where you want it to be. And I think that I must have gone through 30-40 coils of slightly different sizes, slightly different tightnesses of wrapping the cotton wrap round it, different elements of the cases as well, because if you use a different type of case, and Adrian will attest to this, if your case is slightly thicker, than it should be, it's going to affect the inductance. If it's a bit thinner than it should be, it's going to affect the inductance. So it's just getting all those bits and pieces together to come up with something that's as close as you can get to, really.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think it's one of those things that I don't think even the fact that I'm using an Arduino powered machine, so it's a home built winder with a motor on it, with a reciprocal motor moving left and right, so it's moving the wire across the coil as well as it spinning round.
Yeah.
And it's got an Arduino on it. Basically, for my own stupidity, it was usually a case of I put it on and I want, I don't know, let's say 7,400 winds. So I put it on and you think, oh, it's probably about 40 minutes or so at the speed that it does it. So you go away and 50 minutes later, you come back and there's like 8,500 winds on it. Oh, right, I've been a bit late. So it was either junk it or try and wind 1,000 off it. So what I did then was little Arduino, one of the Raspberry Pi type things, attached it to it with a magnetic read sensor on it, so you can put in how many ones you want it to do, press go, it goes, and then when it's counted that it's done that many, it stops.
Definitely the best way to go, Matt.
Yes. But yeah, it does mean you can go away and just do something completely different and not have to keep pushing back every 5 minutes. Is it there yet? Is it there yet?
Well, no, but that's great. I mean, that's testament to you and your, taking on. I mean, Julian speaks very highly of your pickups, so he was quite happy to share with you that information and let you run off with it. But you've not only have you created pickups from the information that you've got, you've then found what works for you, and then you've had to build your own machine to do it, which is that's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but having picked up all the skills from some electronics skills and then some 3D printing skills and CAD design skills, it's kind of all came together probably at about the right sort of time where you could go, I just about know enough about everything, I think I can give this a go.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is because at the time when I was wanting to do those pics, my intention was to put a set of Edisons in it.
Yeah.
And I think I still have a set of Edisons kicking around the house, and I thought, get a new set from Adrian. And at the time, he wasn't doing it. His website, his email address had disappeared from his website.
Yeah.
He wasn't taking on any pickup work at that particular time. So again, necessity being the mother of invention, I thought again, how difficult can it be to find a piece of copper enough times to make a pickup?
Yeah. Well,
and it grew from there. I did manage to sell a few of the early coils that weren't close to prime May spec, but I was a member on a Burns Facebook group, and Julian sort of said, "Well, don't throw them away. You sort of say what the values are on this group, see if anybody wants them." So I did manage to get rid of a few of my old coils that way. One guy, he actually put them in Burns base pickups, and he said, "Ooh, they sound very nice and creamy and smooth."
Yeah.
So yeah, there's more than just the prime May spec ones out there at the moment.
No, it's great, and that I remember when you started. I wouldn't say when you started selling them, but when people started getting hold of them on the forum, they get really good reviews, and everyone recommends your good self or Adrian. I mean, Adrian's a little bit harder to get hold of sometimes. I know he's been, whilst recording this, he's moving or has moved, so he's been moving his equipment and whatnot. But no, you've been doing the forum a good service, Matt. Yeah. Yeah, no, so you've done really well, Matt, to serve the forum.
I mean, it literally did start of me saying, I need a set of pickups and I'd like them to be somewhere near prime May spec. So I built myself some, and I can't remember who the first people were, but a couple of people obviously knew what I was doing. And I thought, oh, they sound good. Can you make me some?
Yeah.
Somebody else goes, "Oh, that's good. Can you make me?" And it just sort of snowballed from there.
No,
Which really is why, unfortunately, at the moment the waiting list is closed. Because I did get to the stage where I was just inundated. I have a 9 to 5 job. It is literally just a hobby, is this?
Yeah.
And I had enough orders for pickups to sort of make sure that I had absolutely no free time for the next month. So unfortunately, yeah, that's sort of why the waiting list is closed at the moment. I'm just about caught up with where I need to be. There's a few more to go, but it will be reopened at some point. Just not just yet.
No, well, it's important because it's, you know, to say it as well, because I think people forget sometimes. For a lot of us, all these endeavors are our passion. It's our free use of free time. It's not what we're doing to earn our money every day. It's and it's time consuming, and you know, as much as we love it, especially when you're doing something like making pickups, it's quite a repetitive process.
Yeah,
it's quite tedious and quite detailed work as well, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah, it can be quite frustrating at times, especially if for some reason there's a tight spot on the spool of the copper that you're winding from, and you get 6,000 winds into a 7,000 wind coil, and the wire goes ping and snaps. So cut that all off, start again.
Yeah.
The fact that it's 44 AWG wire, it's like the thickness of a human hair. You can literally just get hold of it in your fingertips and go ding, and it's broken.
Yeah.
So it can be quite delicate, especially trying to wrap the cotton wrapping around it as tight as you possibly can without disturbing it too much or breaking something. And then the air goes blue and it ends up in the bin.
There you go. And then another set bites for dust.
Yeah.
No, it's good. But it's also led you on. So with Yonderbosk, my recollection is you started off making pickup. Well, you were making some other bits and pieces, and then you started making pickups.
Yeah,
you also have
first, really, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's
myself, but people start saying, "Oh, can you make me one?"
Yeah. And you started making those to look like the BC149 of the back in the good old days.
Yes.
And we have one, haven't we? We've got one that you and I have put your time and my money together, and in honor of your podcast, we don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to give one away to a listener for free.
Yay! Yeah. Exactly.
So thank you for your help with that. But maybe we can have a think while we're talking about a question we should ask people, or what we should do to try and try and give that one away. But maybe it'd be a question about how many turns did Matt say he would usually use for a trisonic pickup? Because you've already said a number, so maybe we go with that. But we'll think.
I'm thinking that I will say that on the bobbin that I use for the on the middle pickup, it's at a resistance as close as you can to 7.44 kilos.
Okay, so that'll be
how many turns is that on the bobbin?
So
and the closest one
will win. So what we'll do is we've got a BC149 booster made by Matt. We'll ask that question, and if people want to comment under the video or on Facebook, and then at a set date, probably a week after the episode's gone live, Matt and I will pick who's the winner, and we'll get in touch with you and send you a booster.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well done, Matt. Thank you for that. So you started building the boosters.
I started building them under a different name, as you may recall.
Yeah, you did.
A little play. Obviously, Brian's initials are BHM, and again, you can find his signature on the internet anyway. So I thought I use the initials BHM. What can I actually call them? And the only thing I could think of at the time, which is on the early pedals, is badly handmade. Which I think at the time might have summed them up perfectly.
And I'm glad to. it was a good transition from that to Yonderbosk, because I think when you move from BHM to Yonderbosk, your work had improved somewhat, and they weren't so badly handmade anymore.
Yeah, I'm
They
still
were
learning.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's still bits that aren't quite right with bits that I've made. I've very nicely had some feedback as well from Nigel Knight, that has sort of had a set of my pickups to someone. So he was, as Nigel is, he will tell you exactly how things are.
Yep.
So yeah, some good learning points from Nigel for me going forwards as well.
No, definitely. And Nigel's, you know, he is completely honest and very straight when it comes to those sorts of things. But he's, to his credit, he's not doing it to be mean and nasty about you. He's trying to help you improve.
Exactly. Yeah, he knows what it's like to be, to make these things and to have your name or your company name associated to them. So you want them to be the best that they possibly can be. And if they're falling short in whatever way, then it's great to have somebody with Nigel's experience to sort of say, tweak that, do that a little bit differently, and things like that. So as you say, he's not being nasty to you. Sort of say, I know what it's like. You need to get these things right.
Yeah, well, he's trying to help at the end of the day, and you know, if it pushes you a little bit more to make a better decision or to change what you're doing for the better of everyone, then you know, more kudos to him for telling you as well, because it's not easy sometimes, especially when we've all spent loads of time and effort doing something, for someone to go, yeah, but it'd be better if you did that.
Yeah. Well, that's a pile of shite. Do something else.
No, he's probably said that to me a few times, but no. No, it's so boosters, and then you started making the pickups. You've also tried your hand at making a few deaky pedals, or not deaky pedals, deaky boards and deakies, and a very special deakish.
Oh, the deakish. Yes. It started off with a deakish, which was, it's the circuit itself is based on the old Fryer and Cat 1 watt Deacy style amp.
Yeah.
So it's not got the same values as the Deacy, but it's based on that particular one. So again, trying something new, using online software to convert a schematic into a printed circuit board, generating the right files, sending those off to a company in China to get circuit boards printed, and waiting however long month to come back. And then making sort of Deacy style amps. Again, a nice learning process in that you, from again researching on the internet and things like that, you can get rough ideas of what the transformers on the original Deacy amp were, sort of value wise, and then it was a thing of trying to find modern equivalents that are still available of somewhere near those particular values, and I thought I'd got it, so I put them in the little Deacy amp and brought it to the meetup. I'm in a little office here when I was testing it and practice it, and it's brilliant. It's just the right sort of volume for a small little office like that. Take it to the meetup, and put it on the stand next to all the other Deacys and do a back-to-back Deacy test, and you get to mine and everybody sort of says, can't hear it, what? So yes, it was a little bit quieter than it should have been, but again, Nigel stepped up on that, and he gave suggestions as to what it could be, because all the values and the HFEs of the transistors were in the sort of right ballpark, and it turns out that the output transformer I was using, that although the turn ratio of the first coil, the primary coil to the secondary coil, was correct, because the actual resistance of the primary coil was high comparatively, it couldn't get up to its maximum or its maximum output before it's spitting it out to the output coil. So it wasn't getting to its full power before actually passing it out to the speaker. So yeah, the advice there was find one with a much lower resistance input coil, and it will probably work fine. So again, I looked through the catalogs for them, found one with the lowest, pretty much the lowest resistance primary coil that I could, put that in, and my God, it's loud. For those who haven't actually heard a Deacy up close, it's surprising how loud it is for something less than 1 watt.
Well, yeah, it's not. It's I mean, yeah, it's definitely not like a practice amp at home. It's a pretty loud thing, and you can't really plug it in when the children go to bed and play with it. It's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you were onto something there, Matt, with the Deacish. You could have sold them as practice amps.
Yes, yeah. I think it might be easy just to put a volume control in it now.
Yeah. No, but
sort of begs the question that somebody was saying to me earlier that they're convinced that the Deacy used to have a volume control in it in the very, 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 very early days of it, but
yeah. So I think I remember reading that it used to, and it would sit outside of the box. But they soon realised that with the red special and treble booster going into it, the volume control was pretty null and void, so it ended up getting removed. And I think they possibly, and this could be my memory fading or me making things up from just different things I think it either got put back inside at some point, or John wired it out so that it wasn't part of it because they just realised that it was so much better up full.
Yeah.
But I remember reading about that. Where I read that, I couldn't possibly tell you because I've read so many different things over the years. But it's interesting because it's again, it's part of the history of it, and
yeah,
it's we tend to think of things as they are now, but obviously things like the guitars changed over the years, and Deacy's changed over the years. The 8030s have changed. Brian's choice on treble boosters and whatnot's changed, and things evolve. But no, and then so with the Deacy, I remember it quite well. Although we make a joke and you're very good at taking the humour. It did have a lovely tone to it. It wasn't that it sounded crap. It was pretty nice sounding. It was just a bit quieter. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the first one it had a couple of vintage ELAC speakers in it, so I think it stood a fighting chance of getting somewhere near the tone.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, just a little bit too quiet.
Well, yeah, again, a learning though, and you've put yourself out there and made something and brought it along, and then been able to put it against the things that are the knowns, and like the Cat Deacy, and I think we had a Manuel Deacy, and Mark Reynolds had his actual brother Deacy there with him too that year. It was a great year actually for Deacy, another great meetup. And we were able to AB them all and to put yours against it, and then understand that it was quieter, but the tone was there. And from then on, you progressed on again because you've now made accurate replicas of the Deacy board.
Yes.
And you've done some other work, which is likely to be out soon or probably already out by the time we've talked about this. Tell us about that.
Yes. Yeah, I did some again, lots of research on the internet. There are actually manuals and technical manuals for the Supersonic PR80 radio on the internet, and from those and from other bits and pieces that you can find on the internet, you can actually get a good idea and some quite clear looks at what the actual circuit board for the Deacy is. So again, using this software, convert those pictures, because you can actually, rather than having to draw lines for your tracks and everything, you can actually import a picture, a JPEG, as your tracks. So it was a fairly simple matter of putting a photograph of the board into Photoshop, turning it into a black and white picture, and using that as the copper tracks to be sent off. So yeah, it's quite simple in inverted commas to get an accurate looking circuit board for that. Yeah, so that's now I've got one in my relic Deacy, which again came to the meetup last year and will be coming again this year. Although apparently when Justin Shirley Smith had a very quick conversation with him, he had a look at it because I got found as many photos as he can online and try and relic it to what it is. I've taken a little bit too much wood off one of the corners. It's not quite that much missing, but it's getting there. But he says the stickers on the top, those are spot on. So yeah, perhaps little tweaks. Although I'm convinced that it's been tidied up since, because the photos we all generally see are the ones where there's some sort of black goopy staining on the side, and there's a white paper label that goes over one of the corners and things like that.
Yeah.
Which, the generic. But when I saw the Brian May interview with Rick Beato, and he handed Brian the Deacy, I'm sure it looked a lot more clean and shiny than I've ever seen it before. So I don't know whether Andy Guyton or Nigel or anybody's like that has actually cleaned it up, given it a polish, the cabinet. So,
question to be asked if ever we get them back on.
So yeah, I've got the PR80 style board in my relic Deacy, and I have sold a few of them for people who are wanting to make their own Deacy style lamp. I'm always scouring around eBay and places like that for any close looking ELAC speakers. They seem to be getting even rarer than they have been recently, and expensive. There was a pair of ELAC 6-inch woofers, which were the correct magnet, the correct basket, no whizzer cone on them, and one of the cones actually had a hole in it, and they still went for something like £90. So yeah, they are getting a bit silly in price at the moment. But yeah, I've sold a few to some people, and then it'll be several months ago now. I got an email from a gentleman saying that he's looking at making a Deacy style amp. He was going to be using the cap speaker, but he was looking for the circuit board to go with it. So I made, as I call it, the Conquest PR80 board replica. And he wanted to make a Deacy style amp for someone for a birthday present, and would he be able to help out? So as you do, you kept chatting, and said, yeah, I can make a board for you, post it out to you in the US, and it turns out that said person that was being made for a birthday present was Steve Vai.
Nice.
The guy who bought it off me, he works for Luthier Company, and they have done a lot of work on Steve Vai's guitars over the years, refretting, tidying up and things like that. So they know him quite well. And yeah, he just wanted to make something like this for Steve. So that was quite nice. Interestingly then, again, going back to the Brian May and Rick Beato video, when he's talking about the Deacy, if you actually skip forward in that video to that bit where he's showing the Deacy off, you will hear him say that Steve Vai apparently emailed him and said, "Hi Brian, have a look at this wonderful Deacy style amp that I've just received as a present from someone." And Brian sort of said, "That looks very nice, can I have one?" So there is another board gone out to this gentleman to build one for Brian, and while they were at it, they are also building one for Joe Satriani.
Nice, the original.
So there's 3 of my boards in amps out there. Hopefully, by the time this goes out, it will be public knowledge, and I'll probably share some photos of them by that point. Just waiting to go ahead from them to say that I can go public with them. But yeah, it's gratifying that. It's one of those things that there's a lot of people on forums and things will probably say that, you know, I would love to make something for Brian and send it to him, and
Yeah.
some people do, and you know, so get some nice responses from him, and it's in a roundabout way that's finally happened for me.
Nice, very good, Matt. Well done. You must be really, really proud of where you've got to.
Yes, yeah, it's certainly not where I expected to be when I started doing all the badly handmade stuff a couple of years ago. Yeah, it's certainly grown beyond my expectations, I think, really.
No, it's really good. Well, you can see you've put a lot of hard work and effort into it over the years. And if you were to go back to your original posts and track to where you are now, and we've not even finished your story yet, because I know there's some more to talk about, that you've clearly worked hard to improve, and you've made something, put it out there, been very brave to put things out there as well, even if you know that they need work, and get some constructive feedback, some criticism, and some jokes, and then but you've gone back and you've worked at improving it, or understanding why it didn't work, and putting it right, and then constantly learning. And then for anyone that's then bought pickups from you, or a board or a booster, putting those things into them and improving and constantly doing things. And I know you've also done loads of other independent things to treble boosters and Deacy boards and whatnot for people, and you're always helping me out with something that's either Red Special related or not.
Yes.
we can't talk about any of that at the moment, but
maybe later, but just
not now. Probably not on the podcast either. But and I know I'm not the only person you help out with your skill set, so it's a credit to you for, you know, trusting all of us and working with us and humoring us, and at your own cost and expense sometime to help us all out.
Again, it's one of those things that you know, and I think it's probably the same with a lot of people in the Red Special community. If somebody is, should we say, I don't know, they're trying, they are doing their investigations, they have got as far as they possibly can, and they just come up against an impasse. And then sometimes it's a case of, I really hate to bother you, but it's okay, I've done this and I've got to here and I'm now stuck. Is there any chance you could help me? Fine. Yeah. I'm more than willing to help people. I think it's one of those that if people have obviously done their bit and just come across that impasse, then yeah, why not share that information? I think it's a bit different if somebody is sort of from scratch, you just sort of said, tell me everything you know about X. Yeah, probably not. But yeah, no, again, I'm that sort of person. Many years ago, I had a different sideline hobby of detailing cars, and it's that thing of you spent several hours polishing, waxing the car, and then when you see the look on the owner's face at the end of it, and you see that smile, seeing the car, as shiny and clean as it possibly can be, that's what makes it worthwhile for me doing it.
Yeah.
Similarly with things like the pickups, if somebody's just wanting that bit extra, that perhaps trying to get a bit closer to the Brian sound, and they get come to me, get a set of pickups, put them in the guitar, set them up, and then start playing that guitar. If they then get a smile on their face, I think, yeah, this is closer to the sound that I was wanted. Well, job done for me. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's a testament to you though, mate, because it's you can easily your pickups are relatively well priced, and not relative, they're well priced for what they are, and you could try and stitch everyone up and command an absolute fortune, but you don't. And I know that there's loads of people that you help, and you help me, so thank you for that. But I'm
just waiting for my my inbox to suddenly go mad. And
right,
this goes out.
this won't go out for a few months, so you can clear down all your work that you've got on, so you can get prepared for pickup orders. And Matt, can you build me this for free? No, it's great, and you're you know, to me, you're an absolute stalwart of the Red Special community, and you help me by coming to the first meetup. You helped me because you trusted in the meetups, and you're an advocate for the forum, and you've been to every meetup, and you're there without fail. And last year, you played a massive part in helping, as you will do this year as well, because you've been one of the hashtag Frantic Five, which is the little group of people that help behind the scenes to listen to my crazy ideas and make sure that I'm being sensible and not doing silly things, and offer suggestions and help out on the day, so I haven't got to be everywhere, which is last year was, I think, probably the biggest year we've had, and I couldn't have done it without all of you guys support, especially with COVID.
Just something as simple as, just having me as the point of contact to buy the raffle tickets from, or something like that means that if that had been left with you on the day, that's all you probably would have been doing all day.
Yeah.
Haven't got a chance really to do anything else. So yeah, happy to spread the load.
No, but I think it was a lot easier last year with everyone there just to chuck ideas around to make sure that we are making the right decisions with COVID and thinking about how the day was going to run. And I know your messenger inbox that we've got, the little group, goes crazy a few weeks before as I start to get stressed about what's going on. But it's good to have people to
it was good to troughs. We tend not to chat in it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then suddenly an afternoon flurry of activity, and then it all goes quiet for another few weeks again.
That's how my head works, though, as I focus on something and think, this is a good idea, we need to do this, and then talk about it, and then we document it, and then it gets put into the next meetup. It's been great. But so again, people listening, Matt isn't just Matt from Yonderbosk. Matt's one of the 5 people that helps with the meetup as well. And if you see him at the meetup, make sure, or if you speak to him online, make sure you say thank you to him as well for that, because it's he'll say he just did the tickets and the for the raffle on the day, which he did do, and he did very well at. But he also was there to help guide and shape the meetup as it was last year and as it will be this year, and that's no small part either. So thank you, Matt, from me personally, and thank you for agreeing to be on this, for putting up with me.
I am really looking forward to this year.
Yeah.
And I think from the number of people that have expressed an interest in going, some of them have been there sort of like me for the last few years, some of them maybe just last year. But I think it's one of those things that the atmosphere on the day and the things that get done, I don't think it's possible. It's like Pringles. You can't just go to one. You've been to a meetup. You have to go to every single one now.
Yeah, I'd say that each one's been different and each one's got a different feel, but I think they're improving each year for the numbers. So we couldn't do what we did in the first one last year. There's just too many people. So the format has grown as the people have grown. But again, for me, it's a testament to the people in the Red Special community that the meetup's a success, because it's without the people turning up and agreeing to be on it and everyone abiding by the strict timeline I put in place and having a good time and whatnot, it wouldn't be what it was. So it's definitely, we definitely do. It's definitely worth coming to, and it's a highlight of my year. I get very stressed, and I'm probably not the easiest person to talk to the day before or on the day, but the day after, I'm usually on cloud 9.
We try and calm you down a little bit in the back.
Yeah, it's all good fun, but it's it's good. It's a lovely thing.
With the strap line for this year, friends will be friends. I think that just sums up the day really. Yes, there have been celebrities, famous people, the likes of Nigel and Ariel last year, just made things like that. But the day really is for everybody that is there. It's good to. You might have been speaking to somebody on Facebook for months, but to actually be face to face with them and actually speaking to them, you already half know them before you're there. So it is literally just like dropping into an old friend's conversation.
It is, and it's like you've literally just seen them yesterday, and you know the feeling on the forum. I always get that the next like month after the forum. You saw it after the US Red Special meetup as well. Yeah, everyone that was there all of a sudden has an understanding of everyone, and all of those little jokes that would sometimes rile someone up disappear because everyone just gets that.
Yeah.
Because they've met, they can tell the inflection in how they would be saying that thing, or that you know, don't take me seriously ever because I'm just not serious, and and all those things. Just make the forum a much nicer place, and people are happier to share, and it's such a lovely thing to witness people getting on. I think that my favorite part is standing back and just watching everyone interacting and going, oh, look at that, everyone's having a great time.
Yeah, and that takes some pressure off you as well. You don't. It's not as if you have to be herding cats the rest of the day. The people are finding their groups of the people that they want to speak to.
Yeah, no, it's great. Right. Anyway,
I think the fact that there's such a wide variety of people, equipment, and things like that, and it is still the people that make it. You could turn up with your own handmade Red Special. That's the first, like my first one with the relics. The first thing you've ever made is, you know, these mistakes and things like that, and you can have somebody turning up with a Guyton or KZ or something like that, and you're all just treated as equals. People sort of say, "Oh, well, that's a nice Guyton. Yeah, do you want to go?"
Yeah. No, it's great. It's and I say this in pretty much every podcast. I do not know of another community out there that has a fandom for a person and a thing that is as welcoming, because there isn't Guyton snobbery there, and there isn't KZ snobbery, and there isn't homemade snobbery. We're all trying to replicate what Brian and Harold made in their shed bedroom for 2 years when Brian was 15, 16 back in the 60s. With modern techniques, which still blows my mind that they managed to achieve it, especially knowing how difficult it is to make. And we're all just there for the love of that thing, whether we're players, builders, fans, whatever it is, and everyone's just together in that space, enjoying each other's company and chatting about the guitar. I think it's an absolute. I think if I hadn't witnessed it and been there, I don't think I would have appreciated the power of it. But
No, it's something I think you have to have been there to really feel it. And get what it's all about. We can say to the cows come on, well, it's a really nice group of people. You actually get there and meet the people, you realise they genuinely are a nice group of people.
No, it's great, isn't it? It's this year we've got there'll be a lot of the guys from America are planning to come over as well, so it's going to be great. We've started to try and sell tickets already, and already, I mean, we're recording, it's the 2nd of June today. We've already sold nearly more tickets than we sold for the whole of last year already. It's picking up steam already. It's great. But Matt, you've been busy with Yonderbosk. You've been making these boards for Steve Vai and for Brian and Joe Satriani. You've been making treble boosters. You've paused making pickups for a bit, or trying to catch up. You've also been causing us all to question something else in the Red Special that we've all known for a long time. And,
it's not just me. I can't take the whole blame for it. No, there was a few other people obviously involved as well with sort of providing suggestions and evidence, as you might say, and things like that. But yeah, it's something that I'm doing on the current relic build that I've got. That is, I started from scratch for this one. So basically, from first principles of the body shape has come from a drawing round the original, using the X-rays to get the cavities as close as I can and things like that. And one of the things that's been around for a long time is that obviously the original Red Special is made with an oak core and blockboard. Now, the term blockboard, it seems, is interchangeable for different types of board. Technically, you could say the blockboard's plywood. if you go by the rules of what is a plywood. There's varying types. There was batten board, thankfully not Battenberg. That'd be interesting. Right, a batten.
No wonder it sounds so.
Project, you never know. Which is quite wide strips between. There is block board, which is more square strips between, and then there was one even further than that, which was known as lamin board, which is very, very narrow strips of wood between the two pieces of the plywood. And it's a discussion that's been going on for, I would think, for quite a while, probably since the photos published a while back of the unfinished red special on the workbench with the unfinished neck on it and that piece of a submarine or whatever it is that we were going to use originally as a treble bridge. And looking at the patterning of the board that it's made from, you could interpret it in a few ways, in that it's just heavily grained wide block board, but you can also look at it and say that no, that's actually very thin strips and therefore it's lamin board. Which again, as we've discussed, it sort of piques that interest in me to sort of trying to look behind what things might be and what they actually are. So as with a lot of the internet is there is a lot of photos out there on the internet of some quite close-ups of the red special, even more in the book, as we refer to it, book by Simon Bradley and Brian May.
The Bible,
yes. And there's some photos in there which, when you look at them in certain parts of it, and there is one on there specifically when it's a close-up of the pickup cavities without the pickups in them. I can't remember, I have to look what page it's on, but if you have a look for those, that you can see on there, or to my eyes anyway, you can see on there that they are very thin strips of lamin board rather than thicker strips of block board. Again, I think that there's one of Greg Fryer's photos on his website of a close-up of the bridge pickup cavity, and again on one of the photos there you can see regular thin dark lines to sort of indicate the thickness of the battens underneath it. So taking all that together, I decided, yeah, all right, I'll make myself some lamin board, which again sounds easy. Trying to find battens of a reasonable thickness is possible. I ended up at Homebase, I think it was, with something like 4mm strips, 4mm strip wood, which you've then got to glue to each other, which you've then got to glue that between two pieces of plywood, keep the whole thing reasonably level and flat, and wait for the glue to dry and clamp it all together, and eventually you get something approximating lamin board. So that's what I'm building my current relic out of. I can't remember, I don't know whether it was Ian that made one with lamin board previously. Somebody provided him with some lamin board.
Matt H.
Is it Matt H? Yeah. And basically sort of looked at it and thought, what the hell's this? Oh well, I'll use it. From what he's saying, it actually does make a very nice sounding guitar.
Yeah.
Just that little difference between what we refer to at the moment as block board and the lamin board. So we'll see. Because when I get mine together, the pickups are a known constant. So we'll see what it sounds like at the meetup on a full Brian May rig.
It'd be really interesting to see it and feel it and play it and see the resonance. I think that's probably, to me, if I was putting my scientific head on, the reduction of actual wood and the more of a glue,
Higher glue to wood ratio.
yeah,
Yeah.
having more glue as a solid possibly change the way the guitar resonates, and that might be in a detrimental way, it might be in a positive way, but that's going to be really interesting to play it and feel it, because I think that's probably where I mean, again, we can get very close. We know it's a 24-inch scale. We know what the woods are. We know roughly what the neck size is. We know body shape, cavities. Is this the missing piece of the puzzle? We just don't know. But hopefully we'll find out. And it's really interesting. I find the whole thing fascinating because it's what it's
the
been.
Other thing as well is that for all the things of the combined knowledge of everybody in the Red Special community, Brian will have forgotten more.
Yeah, no, and we've all read the articles where he's said one thing in one and another in another, and I think Pete, in the Pete Malandrone interview, I think he touched on it, where he used to think, can you remember what pen you used 20 years ago on what notepad to write that note to that person? Can you remember what you saved that file as in Excel when you were making a spreadsheet for your boss 10 years ago for that project? No, you can't. And it's the same for Brian. It's not, although to us it's this mystical thing, to him it's a very lovely tool that he made with his father, but you're not going to remember every decision you made from when you were 16, because I can't remember what I said at the meetup last year. I can't.
I don't even know, with the bank holiday weekend, the Jubilee, I don't even know what date it is today.
No, is it Thursday?
I think so.
Yeah.
It felt like a Friday yesterday, so
yeah.
I have no idea, really.
No. But yeah, so it's interesting, because I think, again, and I don't know that we'll ever know, but it's one of those fun things, and we're at that point now in the forum where we've got people like you who are like, well, if it looks like Bannon board from the photos and you're convinced it is, well, you're just going to go ahead and make one and see. And I think that's a great place to be, because before 20 years ago when this all started, that we wouldn't have probably been in that position. And what's great is you'll be able to come along to the meetup and you'll have finished the guitar, Matt, no pressure, and and be able to pick it up and see how it feels and see how it resonates and see what it sounds like compared to another. That would be a really interesting thing.
And I've got to thank you to say, I honestly can't remember who it was at the meetup, but you know who you are. The one of the meetup attendees very kindly gave me a piece of genuine South American mahogany that had been in their loft and nice and dry for several years. So the neck of this relic is going to be genuine South American mahogany. So I'm sorry I forgot which of you was, but you know who you are, and thank you very much for it. It is going on the relic guitar. So if there is any tone in proper mahogany, then that will be contributing to it.
Well, hopefully that person will be at the meetup this coming year, and you'll be able to say thank you and show them the finished guitar and let them have a triple.
The only thing I'm missing right now at the moment for my relic is a definitive map of wood wormholes. I think I've got most of them from some of the black and white photos, but unless somebody out there got a definitive map of wood wormholes, I will be adding them and filling them with matches.
Yeah, I hope you're going to be using the Bryant May variation matches.
Definitely using Bryant's May matches, yes.
Well, I don't know that they were around back then, but I think that's the interesting thing from chatting to you as well over the years, Matt, is that between the two of us, we always ask one of the big things of our questions when we get on a thread of something. It usually tends to be something very minutiae of the guitar. Is well, what would Brian and Harold have done? And then it's well, first of all, your approach, and then my approach to follow is what did they have available at the time. So it was a really interesting one was when we worked out that wood filler wasn't a thing back when they built it.
For the body screws.
Yeah,
because varying people do it in varying different ways. I know that some you will use wood filler. So when you screw the two halves of the body together, these obviously the screws are inset a little bit. Some people use wood discs to fill it, and standard, some people use wood filler, but for me, it was sort of a faff to make the, I don't know, I could probably buy some dowel and just slice it down, but I thought, you know, what would Brian and Harold do? Given the amount of epoxy that's around that guitar in various hank rivet holes and pickups and things like that, it seems like they had a job lot of epoxy. Harold kicking around in the garage or in the workshop. So I thought, well, why wouldn't they have used the Harold to fill in those holes?
Well, but I think what's interesting is the thought process that, you know, it sounds so simple and it probably sounds like a sensible thing, but we spent probably about 2 days discussing this. As the pros and cons and whether or not they would have, and what mindset would they have been in. I think that's a really interesting point we're at now. It's not just discussing what they did, but trying to understand why. And
yeah, and I think the number of things that we were discussing that in our minds was evidence for the use of epoxy. It was things like, if you look at the original guitar, you can actually see where those screws are, because there's a very slight round lump. So as the wood of the blockboard has dried out over the year, that's slightly shrunk, and it's sort of left that bit behind as it's shrunk back. So you know, that sort of gets you thinking, well, if it had been filled with wood dots, that would have shrunk also. If it had been filled with wood filler, that probably would have shrunk even more because of the high water content of wood filler. So the fact that it's slightly proud of the wood around it, epoxy to my head, once it's set, doesn't move. So again, it's sort of, we were convincing ourselves that that's another piece of evidence to say that's why it's epoxy.
Well, I think as well the mistake in the neck recess where they've pushed the hank nuts in, if you look closely, and it's one of those things that, I mean, I looked
in the middle, the
neck pickup
position.
recess.
They put 2 holes in,
and they're wrong.
And put the 2 holes for the hang rivets.
And again, it's those details that, I mean, it took me 15 years to notice that, even though I had those photos for 15 years. It's just because you're not necessarily, you know, you can look at it, but until someone tweaks your interest or points something out to you, sometimes you can look at these things blindly, and then you go, I wonder if oh wow, I've never noticed that before. And it's
a recent one like that for me is the photos that you see of the original's neck when you're looking at the back of the tenon, and there's 2 areas on what would be the bottom side, so the high E side, on the underneath. It looks to be 2 black marks. Now, when you look at them, they sort of look like it's something that has indented it or something there, and then subsequently got dirty and things like that. And that was my thought process. But when you actually look at what's there is nothing in the neck pocket of the body that could cause that sort of mark. And it wasn't until I then looked at some later photos that I finally twigged what they are. And there were little, as they are in the neck pickup position, the grooves where the wires for the old pickup system came out from underneath the neck and out the side of the neck and into the body, which was subsequently being filled in with some sort of black goop or something like that to fill in those gaps. And it wasn't until I looked at it really closely again, the penny drops, and you go, oh, I didn't see that before.
Yeah. No, it's funny, isn't it, when you pick those sorts of things up? Because that baffled me for a long time, and then I was like, it's just they had the wires underneath instead of on the top originally. Because it lines up with the 2 mistake holes. If you look, I mean, in my head, it lines up with where the two holes where they made the mistakes were. So maybe at some point they were planning the pickups to be in a different location or to have those contacts slightly wider, which is where they were. And then they realized it was actually a faff to try and feed the wires through and get it all lined up. And they then changed it to the smaller Eclipse magnet pickups and moved the contact points in, took those out, filled them, drilled 2 new ones, slopped them in, and then wired it on the top rather than underneath. But it's just, yeah, I mean, it's really boring stuff, really, if you're not interested in the detail, but fascinating because it was a decision they made and they've tried it and gone, actually, it doesn't work. So let's put it right and try it again.
Yeah, and I think it sort of backs up as well the fact that, again, over time there's been discussions of, was there only ever one body made? Did they make mistakes and then refine it and then make another body or something like that? Or is there more than one neck? Which we know there's not more than one neck.
Yeah,
because we've seen again in the Bible the piece of wood that the neck came from, and there is no way you can get another one out of that.
no.
And there was a thing about that again, when you look at it, you think there's no way that's the same body. Again, going back to that picture of it being built with that big, whatever it is, submarine part, whatever it is, where they actually cut out the top of the body to fit that. And then when you look at it, you think there is no way a hole that size could be hidden and still have the guitar that we have today. They must have made another body for that. But when I again played around with it in Photoshop, you can actually show that it's the oak block that's filling that hole.
Yeah.
And the original hole is inside the half moon area where the tremolo sits. There's sort of the half moon, and then there's that little nipple, shall we say, where it's screwed in. The edge of that nipple is the back of that original hole. Yeah. So we sort of said, yes, it is the same body.
Yeah, and it all fits together, and you can see there's loads of details. What's great is people like yourself are able to work with Photoshop and put things together and then prove theories that we've had for a long time. And I remember when we discussed the biscuit that sits under the
yes,
under the oak, but we'll say that
really cool, but we've called it a biscuit.
It's the biscuit, but yeah, but it's just interesting, isn't it? Because it probably makes no difference to the tone whatsoever, but it's nice to know that those things are there and included in guitars, and that we have a bit more of an understanding of to why something was done and how it goes together. And I think it makes a lot of sense then when you look at that submarine piece, and then, as you've said, everything lines up properly and fits into the space. Clearly they had that as a problem and they've had to overcome it, and they've done, well, we need a flat surface, so let's make a biscuit to make it flat, and then we can put this other bit that we've got on top. And that's why you get the semicircle and the X-ray. It isn't the whole piece, it's just that small layer, and the other bit's square, which makes more sense because you wouldn't have that as the piece that it screws to, because it'll spin round and it all suddenly falls into place. And it's, again, I just go back to, you and I, or yourself, Matt, looking at this with Photoshop and being able to prove that that was correct. You go back 60 years to young Brian and Harold sat there with the thing in front of them with just hand tools, trying to make it. And, we've got the computers to help us with these things, and CNC and, disposable income. You're talking about they're having to build a guitar because they haven't got the money to buy one, and they've made this mistake, and then they put it right with hand tools. It just absolutely blows my mind that they were able to do it and pull it off so well, and the guitar still plays today and still is that iconic. I think, yeah.
It was certainly playing well this Monday just gone.
Yeah, where you went to see them at Manchester at the AO Stadium.
Ayo. Oh, the Teletubby Arena. Ayo.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was on song.
Yeah.
I think, Brian on the talent end, for want of a better expression, and Pete Malandrone on when he's hitting, for example, the MIDI button for that one note in I Want It All and things like that. It's a well-oiled machine. I think, for the number of times that you can see swapping guitars, if there was a number of guitars used, there was obviously the Red Special. There was one of the friars as the drop D for Fat Bottom Girls. There was the Green Guyton for the shenanigans in kind of magic, and things like that. So the number of times that guitars are being swapped, it's seamless. I think, and again, I think it was discussed on the forum a little bit. The only thing that I did spot, and it's probably something that you might get the opportunity to ask, is that I'm sure that Pete had to swap out one of the AC30s on Monday night. I just caught the tail end of what it looked like in putting an AC30 back in place. So I don't know whether a valve went, the speaker went pop, or he was just twiddling and checking it, but there was something with one of the AC30s.
We might be able to ask him at the right time. I'm sure he'll
Yes.
when they're off the tour, he'll get back in touch with Pete, I think, and see how he is and how it's gone.
Yes.
But I'll make sure that we get to ask him. But no, and Matt, I just want to go back to saying that you've helped a lot of people out on the forum. You've helped me out. You're always there on the end of a message. If you've got any stupid questions,
I'm
you help.
them, so I'm quite happy people asking stupid questions to me because I do it to them.
No, you're very thoughtful. You made all those custom Funko Pops for us all, which you had to keep for several years due to COVID, which you were able to give out last year, which made a lot of people smile. I put some photos up of those.
Yes.
Were you?
I don't know whether Nigel's decided whose toilet is going in yet.
Yeah, and it's things that you don't have to do that you do and you do with your own free time and your own money, and you do it because it's a lovely thing to do and very thoughtful, and it's easy to laugh that off. It's a fun thing to do, but it comes from a really lovely place from you, and it doesn't go unnoticed, and I really appreciate it because it makes my meetup special, those little things for other people, and having people like you turn up. So on a sensible note, thank you, because you're doing a great thing. But and it's been lovely to chat to you this evening, sir.
And to you too.
I'm sure at some point we'll catch up again if there's any more things from Yonderbosk Towers that comes out that we can share in the future.
There's lots in the pipeline. Of varying sizes and materials, but there's again through the query of I wonder if I can. So
I'm sure
I'm doing them to see if I can find out if I can.
I'm sure we'll see loads of those, and if people want to find you to follow what you're up to, where's the best place to go to look?
Probably the Facebook page, Yonderbosk Creations. I think it's facebook.com/
Yonderbosk Creations.
Yonderbosk. Oh, no, it's just /Yonderbosk.
Yeah.
You find it that way. I do have a website as well, which is more of a case of just showing off finished things. But all the behind the scenes stuff and updates and everything are on the Facebook page at the moment, or occasionally I'll cross post into the Red Special Forum Facebook page as well, and also on Instagram. Yep.
I was going to say Instagram's my favourite place to look at photos because it's much easier to read than Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Matt, it's been great chatting to you tonight. Thank you so much for spending a couple hours with me. I know you're a busy man and you've got lots of pickups to wind and lambing broad bodies to finish if you are to succeed in your plan of getting one for the meetup. But people, if you're out there, make sure you go and check out Matt's website, check in with what he's up to, and if you're in need of pickups, go and ask him nicely if he can make you a set. Which reminds me of something I need to talk to you in a minute. Thanks. No, thanks, Matt. Thanks for tonight, and looking forward to seeing you in person in October.
Fantastic. See you then, John.
Cheers, Matt.
Cheers.
So that was the episode with Matt, which was absolutely fantastic. Matt's an absolutely wonderful chap, great to record with, and we had a lot of giggles and chats around what was said and what wasn't, and it's a good episode. Thanks, Matt. It's great, always lovely to learn how you guys got into Queen and Brian May and the whole Red Special and falling down the rabbit hole of building these things. We're all so similar or slightly different, but no, it's just good to capture. And I know you've done some great things yourself in the last 12 months, and you've gone on to build the amps for Brian's, the Deacy amp replicas for Brian May, Joe Satriani and Steve Vi through your friend Doug, who works with Steve Vi, and you've also done some other bits and pieces, not to mention the It's Slate slates, which I'm sure will be coming to a shop near you soon. All proceeds going to Save Me, but more on that later. And the other thing that I wanted to say was, don't forget to follow the instructions in the episode to have a chance of winning that wonderful BC149 treble booster that Matt put together. It's a great sounding booster, and I've got it with me. As soon as we know what's going on and whoever wins that, then we'll be sending that off. But it's a great opportunity to win something that Matt's built, and it's an absolutely fantastic thing to own. So well done to you, Matt. Thanks for your help. Thanks for supporting the channel as well with that. Thanks for thank you. Well done. And I'm sure we'll speak to you again at some point. You never know where or what that might entail. But that's it for today, and that's it for this year. That's the last episode and the last video that's going to come out this year. So just join me in a quick happy birthday to the podcast. Hurrah! I was going to get a cake, but I've been unwell and unable to go and do all of those sorts of things. So we'll just say happy birthday to the podcast together in 3, 2, 1. Happy birthday, podcast! And also just to wish you all a happy Christmas and a happy New Year, or happy holidays wherever you're from. I'm going to be spending time with my family and away from the internet just for a few days, and trying to play a little bit more guitar, because I think I should do in the following year, and also working on all of the lovely new content that we've got coming out for 2023. We're actually going to change slightly how we do things, and instead of recording loads of episodes and editing them over a period of time and uploading them, we're going to record one, edit it, upload it, record one, edit, upload. It makes no difference to you, but to us it means that the stuff that comes out is actually relevant and accurate at that point in time. But anyway, one final thing, just thank you all so much for watching. Please make sure if you've enjoyed this that you like and subscribe, and give a little thumbs up, hit the bell notification so you can see when new things are posted up. If you didn't like it, then please leave a comment. I mean, if you like it, you can leave a comment too, but if you didn't, then let us know what you didn't like. And also feel free to reach out. Any ideas for other future content would be fantastic. I've got lots of guests lined up, so please keep sending those in, but I do have lots of them already lined up for next year and probably the following year. But any other ideas for videos that we can make, that would be fantastic. It'd be great to hear from you. This guitar, Brian May, the story means the absolute world to me, and it's my real pleasure to get to share with you my passion and get people's stories recorded and put down for perpetuity for the future generations, and also to try and capture all the things around that, I think, is the mission of the podcast moving forward. And there'll be some more news on that in the new year, but thank you so much everyone for watching. In the next video, we'll talk meetups, specifically the latest one that's been announced by Luke Holwerder for Phoenix, also the West Coast meetup and the UK 2023 meetup, hotly anticipated. Already been asked so many questions about how that's going to work, how people can get tickets, how many tickets are going to be available, when it is, where it is, all of those things, because a certain gentleman said that he may or may not be attending. But more on that in 2023. We're trying to figure out how best to do all of that so that it's fair and everyone that needs to be there can be there. But again, thank you so much for watching. Your support means the world. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I will catch you later. Cheerio.